Hello and welcome to the Unnamed Automotive Podcast. My name is Sammy Haj Assad, and with me, as always, is my good friend and fellow automotive journalist, Benjamin Hunting. Say hi to the people, Ben.
Greetings, fellow humans and human-curious listeners.
Yeah, welcome to everybody. If this is the first time you're listening to our podcast, thank you for trying something new. I really hope you came and joined us either before or after we showed up on the Auto Guide podcast, or Auto Guide show, as it's known, where we were guest hosts and talked about a bunch of things.
Sammy, don't forget we're recording this well in advance of it being broadcast for your vacation.
Yes, that's true. So maybe it probably did come out. You might have gotten it.
It probably did. I think we recorded the Auto Guide podcast 5 weeks ago, judging by when this is coming out. This is a series of short podcasts that we're putting together for Sammy's summer vacation because we didn't want to have nothing going out while he was gone, and we can't record where he is because of a series of ancient laws that forbid that type of data from crossing the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, so we don't want to dox ourselves any further to foreign governments the way that we've done so well here at home.
Yeah, podcast already pretty risky business. So we're doing these fun short things. We hope that you enjoy them. If you don't, you cannot listen to them and it won't affect the continuity of the show. Sammy will be back.
You really think it won't affect the continuity of the show? We will not refer to these shows as canon events?
I've realized we've sort of referred to them in other podcasts when they're being broadcast out of order. So it's confusing for everyone. But Sammy will be back in early July, and we will be back
with
around
fresh
then.
content.
Content. Yeah. Some people call it life experiences or time spent with a loving family. But for Sammy, it's all content. So
that is my loving family.
It's a grim glimpse into his brain.
This week we've got a whole segment called Remember Some Cars?
This is perhaps the most self-referential thing we've ever done on the podcast, so I don't blame you if you tune out.
I want our listeners to understand something. Whenever me and Ben drive a lot of cars, okay? Some would say a lot of cars. Maybe
perhaps
too many
cars?
Yes.
Perhaps too many.
And so much so that what we do here on the podcast and what we do when we write about the cars, sometimes the time it takes to completely forget important details about that car is very short. So
Sammy,
what I'm going to do, yes?
I tattoo the displacement of every vehicle I've driven on the inside of my arm.
Oh my God, you must have one hell of an arm. Or
I'm like that guy from Memento, except it's done in that ink that only shows up under a black light.
I was thinking it's like, isn't there there's like villains who like tattoo their bodies after doing something awful.
Villains, yes.
But this is far less nefarious, I suppose. Far less villainous.
This is if I was a villain, I would be like a Disney level villain. And I don't mean like live action Disney. I mean like cartoonish afternoon cartoons for kids Disney. Not like Scrooge McDuck, but yeah, you remember the afternoon cartoons for kids? When I was growing up, there was DuckTales. Woo! There was Chippendale Rescue Rangers.
How
I
much
believe
rescuing did they do?
Quite a bit. So it was just amazing considering they're like literally the size of my fist. And there was Scrooge McDuck in DuckTales, or was he in a different one?
I believe he was in DuckTales. How many fists is his size?
How many fists is Scrooge McDuck? That sounds like the kind of question that gets you on an FBI list if you type it into Google.
But you said that the Rescue Rangers were the size of your fist.
Yes, but I didn't say how many fists. That's once you introduce more than one fist, you're asking for problems in your relationship.
Ben,
Sammy,
so
Darkwing Duck.
Yes, Darkwing Duck was legit. That was my jam.
Who was the bad guy in DuckTales? Was there a bad guy, or was it just adventures?
It was just adventures. Typically, someone who's stealing Scrooge McDuck's money in some way or another, I think.
Now, wasn't DuckTales which one is the one with the guy who has the pilot? Remember he had a yellow airplane.
What's it called?
Tailspin.
Is it called Tailspin?
Yes, I'd forgotten about that. Okay, so getting back to our show, if I was a Disney villain, I would have been the villain from Tailspin.
Wow, that is something that I didn't watch much of. It first aired in 1990.
Yeah, so that gives you an idea of how old I am.
Final episode date, 1991. Oopsies.
Wait, what? There was like there were only 2 seasons? It felt like forever.
Okay, we need to get to the point of this episode. People have tuned out already, man. I don't like this one
Good
bit.
for them. Probably
Okay.
a wise choice given the shakiness of this format.
Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to ask Ben if he remembers some important details from a vehicle he tested within a year ago.
A year ago?
Yeah, within
Okay.
most a year. And we're going to quiz him. We're going to see if he remembers anything about the car that he wrote about.
And by we, you mean you.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the listener is part of it too. Okay, the first car.
I'm sorry you have to be part of this.
Yes. This is a vehicle that the review was published on Capital One's Auto Navigator in October of 2024. It is the 2024 Acura ZDX. Okay, Ben? I want to know, what was your overall impression of this vehicle?
This is such a vague question.
Well, positive
How
or negative?
am I supposed to answer that?
Did you have a positive or negative impression?
I thought it
of the
was
vehicle?
too expensive for what it offered. I thought that if it was $10,000 cheaper, I would probably like it more. But don't I say that about every vehicle?
Yes, I mean, if every car was $10,000 cheaper, we would like it more. Everyone would buy one.
Well, there's some that don't matter. Like if a 911 was $10,000 cheaper, it honestly doesn't matter, right? Like It's still in the same price bracket.
I'm going to say that you're more or less on the money with that description here. You said that this is a fine foot in the door for Acura, but unfortunately it lacks character and a clear connection to the company's other vehicles. Okay, it also costs more than similarly capable electric vehicles, making the case that it's a better without making the case that it's the better one to get. So
it'll be really easy for me to cheat at this contest.
I know,
because I have access to the internet.
I know, but you are, one, very lazy, and two, an extremely honorable co-host here. All right, then I'm going to ask you, what trim level did you test of the Acura ZDX?
It wasn't the
for
Type
this
S.
review.
It was the one that's just below Type S.
Okay, I'm still waiting for an answer. Do you know?
I don't know what that's called. I don't know
Why not?
I only remember that because I remember the engine output, and I remember it feeling like...
You say the name of this trim 7 times in this review.
Well, yeah, because I'm a professional, but right now I'm off the clock, so I don't know.
Give me a guess.
Second from the top. That's my guess.
You think the car was called the ZDX second from the top?
No.
Come on. Give me any.
I can only name 2 ZDX trims. Type S and base model.
It was not. It was not base model.
I know it's not a base model.
It is ZDX A-Spec. So I'm not giving you a point for that. You got 1 point for your overall sentiment.
I don't want your
vehicle.
points.
Huh? Yeah, you really do. Trust me. I'm going to ask you, did you refer to this feature of the vehicle? Okay. Ben, why don't you talk about how big this battery is in this car? Do you know how much output the ZDX A-Spec had?
Just under 500 horsepower or something.
You can't get any more specific than that?
Absolutely not.
All right.
The thing about the Acura,
490 horsepower is correct. You are correct.
So I get one of your
but like,
useless points.
We can say that. We can say for every car you test and be like, it's less than 500
No,
horsepower.
I said just under 500 horsepower.
Fine. 10 is just under.
Also, the ZDX is a perfect example of a car I'm never going to think about again.
Why?
Because Acura is not going to think about it again once they get rid of it and make their own electric car.
Yeah, which is probably going to happen in a matter of no time. Like, well, I don't know about that anymore. But the idea, I guess, was that, you know, they're going to replace this with a real electric vehicle. And will we ever think of the ZDX nameplate again, except for in 25 years?
What do you think you're going to think about more, the ZDX or the Afeela?
What are the Afeela?
Yeah, the Honda Sony collaboration.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
ZDX. Because I drove that and that's a real product and I don't know what the Afeela will ever turn out to be. Okay,
I'm sorry you don't want to spend 6 figures for 230 miles of range, Sammy.
One more question about your story here. What were the rivals of the ZDX that you referenced in your story about it?
Probably the BMW iX and maybe the Genesis G70.
2,
electric. Good.
And one more.
One more?
One very obvious one.
Model X?
Nope.
Cadillac, it's the in-house competitor, the Cadillac IQ. It ends with IQ.
How do you do this, Ben.
It's not the Vistic, it's not the Optic, it's the Lyric.
Perfect. Nailed it. Okay, Ben, I think I'm giving you an overall win on this review of the 2024 Acura ZDX for Capital One. I love that. That was a lot of fun. Okay.
I don't know about that.
I loved it. In July of 2024, you reviewed, we're really pushing our time frame here. You reviewed the 2024 Dodge Hornet RT. Okay?
Oh, man.
What was your overall impression of the vehicle at the time? Do you remember?
That it was not great. It's not a good vehicle. It is very expensive for what it gives you. And it's not really a performance car. And I don't think anyone should buy one. At least not in the RT trim, which I believe is what I drove.
Okay. That you've nailed that. First of all, you got the trim level that you tested right on. Your sentiment about, again, the pricing.
It's a $50,000 car, isn't it?
You did the Canadian review of it, and for the RT Plus, it's closer to 60 grand. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. What? I'm gonna call it iconic badge. Did you reference or nameplate? Did you reference in this review several times?
Iconic badge or nameplate? I don't know because. I'm thinking about, so you got me thinking about this Hornet. I have not thought about that car since I drove it. In fact,
that's why I'm
forgot it existed because have you seen one on the road?
Every time I do, I don't think I acknowledge that I
have seen more of the VinFasts than I have Hornets. I'm not even exaggerating. That's crazy. That's totally crazy. Dodge is in real trouble, aren't they?
But you reference a Dodge... two Dodge performance vehicles in this review several times. Do you know what they were?
One of them is probably is this the review where I compared it to I did a specific comparison to the SRT version of the Caliber?
That's correct. Okay, well done. You did it. Holy moly. What was a quick aside, what was your overall thoughts on the Caliber SRT4 when
I never drove one.
You've never driven one?
No.
Did you want to? Yeah, I've never driven one. I've been in one as it was driven.
Oh my goodness, you're like, what? You've never driven one? And then shocking reveal, Sammy also hasn't driven
one.
But
I didn't write about it.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't compare it to a modern vehicle that you thought would be a modern Caliber SRT4, which very clearly is not. If I remember correctly, this let's make sure I got this right. This vehicle was a PHEV. Do you remember that? Do you remember that fact about it?
Of course. That's the only thing that it is.
How much range do you remember this car having?
It's got to be 35 miles, like 50 kilometers.
That is a huge no. You've got to get back to me on that. I'm going to give you a second chance for that.
Pass.
In regular driving, the Hornet's 12 kilowatt hour battery provides up to 53 kilometers of electric only driving.
I said 50 kilometers.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I said 50 kilometers.
25.
No, before that I said 50 kilometers or 35 miles. And you're like, no.
Sorry.
Oh my goodness. So I got it right. You scolded me.
And
yet I continue to play your game. This game is rigged.
It is. Really it is. I'm only doing your cards. I can't look at my own reviews and quiz myself about that.
I know you cry too much. You're too emotionally attached to those reviews.
That's the difference between me and you, I think. Really.
Yeah, you get attached to inanimate objects. I move through the world only interacting with things that have a soul. It is a very different thing.
You don't reference very many competitors to the Dodge Hornet, but what you do talk about are other your argument here was, is it comparable to the Caliber SRT4? In your story, you refer to modern vehicles that are closer in line to what that SRT4 is. Do you know what those vehicles were?
BMW X2? That was a serious answer.
No, there isn't a BMW reference in here.
I don't know. No idea.
I'll give you two.
How many did I say?
You got two. You said two. You reference the Volkswagen Golf R and the Honda Civic Type R in this review.
Oh, they're the same price. I guess that makes sense.
The RT skips over the entry level entirely and finds itself priced well above the province of well-established hatchback kingpins like the Volkswagen Golf R and the Honda Civic Type R.
I think
Neither
the other
of
Hornets,
which-
I think all
Yeah.
the base Hornets are non-PHEV.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still
let's
haven't
move on.
seen any of those either, though.
The Hornets or the
No, Hornets.
just
period.
no Hornets. Period.
See no Hornets.
And I've yet to see one of those, whatever the Charger and Challenger replacement is called.
I haven't seen
a
It's
single
called
one
the.
of those.
It's called the Charger. I haven't seen it either.
It's called the Charger. The Challenger replacement is called the Charger Daytona.
Yes.
Okay. Another one I've got here is a review you wrote for Inside Hook. It's the 2024 BMW i5 M60. Do you remember this?
I remember the car.
Okay, well, I told you the trim level of this vehicle. Can you give me a rough estimate? I'll give you within $5,000 of how much you think this car costs.
85.
Nailed it. That was perfect. The starting price of the M60 is $85,000 US, and the price of the model you tested was $89,000 US. So that's a huge.
That's the
point
car
right
where
there.
I cut a tire and had to have it replaced in my driveway.
Did you write about that in the story?
No, I wrote about it in a different story.
So I think this is a really important thing to point out. Nothing will make the vehicle more memorable than having a real life situation like that.
Or if the vehicle's haunted, that's memorable.
Which tell me about the haunted vehicles you've
Or
reviewed.
if you find some weird food somewhere in the car, that makes it
Tell me
memorable.
about either of those. Because
I once
definitely
found
had the
like a
latter.
Wendy's meal in the back of a press vehicle I picked up.
The whole meal or just the bag?
I did not open the bag, Sammy.
Okay. Well, I find because I've been testing a lot of family-friendly vehicles, you find like fruit and oat bars and stuff all over these things because
Really?
they usually slide underneath the chairs, and then you'll find them later. It's great. Okay, you referenced the weight of this BMW i5 M60. Do you know how much it weighs?
5,500 pounds.
That's fair. You said over 5,200 pounds in this review. I'll give you 55 because I think that's closer to reality. Do you know how big the battery is in the M60 and how much range it's advertised for?
I'm going to say 92 kilowatt hours, and I'm going to say the range is in miles?
Yeah.
270.
Okay, you're close with both of those. It has an 84.3 kilowatt hour battery and 256 miles of range. So
It's only off by 14. That's not too bad.
Yeah, you overestimated on both, but just slightly. However, in your review, because you drove it in the winter, it got less than expected mileage. Do you know how much less?
I'm going to say 190 to 200 miles.
Total, you're saying?
Yeah, per charge.
Not that bad. 222. So it lost about 30 miles of range, which is actually really kind of decent. Okay, tell me about how much horsepower you remember this car having. I'm going to give it to you within the because last time you said just under 500.
I'm going to say 500.
Okay.
503.
You're so funny. Okay. 593. You were off by 90.
But no, it's like, so if we're playing by Price is Right rules, I got I got 2 of the 3 digits in that correct, which is pretty good.
Yeah, fine. I'll give it to you.
Okay.
Did you know that this vehicle has a special feature called M Sport Boost?
Yeah, it's like a steering wheel button, and you push it and things happen.
What happens?
Boost happens.
Yeah, tell me about that.
You get like 30 seconds of additional torque.
Yeah, excellent. So for 30 seconds, you get 605 pound-feet of torque. You memorized this vehicle. I mean, I know it was a little bit sooner than the last 2 vehicles we talked about, but you know this one inside and out. That's
what
perfect.
I'm actually doing is sending my spirit upon you.
No,
and
you're
telepathically-
you're reading this review.
Telepathically gathering this information from your own eyeballs.
That was brilliant. Okay, I'm really happy with that. There's one more small non-point question here.
Non-point.
Who composed the sound signature of the BMW i Series vehicle?
Oh, is it Hans Zimmer?
It is Hans Zimmer. Well done.
Is there a vehicle he hasn't composed for?
Yeah, he hasn't done the 3-cylinder in the Mirage.
Hans has got a lot of time to do this. Like, in between all the movies he's doing.
Yeah, can you tell me a film score that he has done?
Sure. That I love. Inception. I really like that score. I also was just recently
Christopher
rewatching.
Nolan, it's like a cheat code, right?
Well, speaking of Nolan, I was just rewatching The Dark Knight Returns a couple days ago, and he did the score for that as well. He's done a lot of cool.
Why the Returns and not The Dark Knight?
What do you mean?
Because I think The Dark Knight.
Oh, sorry, I was watching Batman Begins. The first
Batman
one.
Begins is so legit.
Yeah.
That's
it's
such
really
a great
good.
movie.
Yeah, I like it much more than the remaining two. But Hans Zimmer's career is really varied. If you go back in time, he did the score for like Days of Thunder, and I believe he also did the score for Rain Man. And those are
very good movies. Yeah.
They're very different from how he writes now. Although I don't know if have you tried to watch Rain Man as an adult?
Yeah, I like Rain Man quite a lot actually. I think it's one of my favorite movies.
All right, then I won't say anything.
No, but I think now knowing what we do know about people, let's say on the spectrum or with different mental capabilities, it is a bit tough to watch too, right?
Yeah, more than a bit, I think. There's just stuff about it that
exploitative, I suppose, but
I can't get around it anymore.
I mean, are we going to go back into a Tom Cruise discussion because we always do that on this show?
No, we're going to skip it.
Okay, good. One more show. Actually, what is your favorite? So you say your favorite Hans Zimmer score was Inception?
Last Samurai.
Last Samurai. Okay.
I think it's fantastic, and again, very different from if you listen to, say, Inception or the Batman scores, which are really, they're very atmospheric. The use of themes is quite different, and they're not super melodic. And then you listen to something like Last Samurai, which is a lot more melodic. Okay. It's interesting to see these differences. But here's the thing with Zimmer is like basically he has a studio now with a bunch of people who work under him.
Yeah.
And whether or not he's actually writing these,
you think he's just attaching his name to some poor intern's work?
It's not like that, but it's not a secret. I mean, there's documentary I think about it, about how his work process goes. He might be involved in how the scores come out, but it's like this. So in the world of like comic books too, for example, for certain types of comic books, especially in Japan where you have manga that comes out in a really, really quick schedule, you have an artist and creator who's guiding the work, right? But they're not drawing all their backgrounds. They're not drawing all their characters. They have assistants who are doing that. And so they're doing a large portion of the work, but at the edges, there's stuff that's being filled in by other talented people in a team. I don't know how much of that is true for Zimmer, but it's definitely a consideration.
Okay. My favorite, even though you didn't ask me, I'm just going to answer it anyways. And something I get emotional about, I get goosebumps about, is the Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack. I think it's the coolest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, there's some good stuff in there. Again, that's kind of one of the scores I think that marries the large, loud tones of something like Inception with the melodic stuff that he's also capable of doing. I feel like that's both in there.
It's just something that, like, because I listen now to the Disney Channel because I have a kid in the car and I don't want to listen to too much stuff with, like, I don't know, too much pop music. I guess I don't know what my like decision making process is, but occasionally I hear that and I'm like, this is the best song, man.
Now he didn't do all of the films
of the Pirates films. No, I don't think so.
I'm trying to remember the guy,
but I'm imagining
Thomas Newman who did this, who did the other ones.
He did. Wait, hold on. He was hired as the composer for the Curse of the Black Pearl.
Okay. At
World's End and Strangers. No, maybe he did all of them. Hold on. He collaborated with somebody with all of these, actually.
Yeah, some guy named Klaus Badelt.
Get me out of here. You've ruined my whole day.
But I had thought that someone had taken over for one of the movies, like not in a bad way. I think he just left. Here's what's funny about I'm reading this now. Curse of the Black Pearl. Alan Silvestri had been hired to do the score, and then they basically had a fight with Jerry Bruckheimer, and it didn't happen.
Oops. Okay, let's get on with one more car that you've reviewed in the past year. It is the 2024 Jeep Wrangler 4xE. Do you remember what trim level you drove of the Jeep Wrangler 4xE for inside hood?
Sahara.
Wrong. Rubicon X.
What's X? Is that? Oh, is that the one with the stupid tires?
You tell me, Ben.
I think is that the Recon X?
You've wrote Rubicon X. I'm gonna make sure. Yes, it has stupid tires, so I'm gonna give you a point for remembering.
There's like a Rubicon Recon X or something.
This is called Rubicon X. You said, at times I wish the Jeep came with a pair of leashes for its two front BF Goodrich tires to rein in at least a little of their endless wandering. Okay?
Who do I think I am?
You think you're God's gift to writing over here. Okay, tell me how much you think this car costs. The one in particular you tested, because
$57,000.
the one you tested.
Yeah.
No, 78,000. The only interesting thing is there's one too many digits in this price on this review. I think you should talk to an editor. Although it's an hour late now. Okay, what was notable about this vehicle is that it was a plug-in hybrid. Do you know what the combined output of this plug-in hybrid is?
That's a really good question. No, I don't. 375 horsepower?
Yeah, what do you mean you don't know? You nailed it to the that was bullseye.
Complete guess.
Yeah, so sometimes the knowledge just stays in you.
No,
head.
I assure you, that was not knowledge rising to the surface. That was random chance. That was a stop clock being right now.
Okay, so how much mileage does this 17.3 kilowatt
25
hour
miles
get? 21 miles. You're not
really?
You weren't far off there. I'll
maybe those X tires take a few miles off.
Yes, that's very true. What was your overall impression of this vehicle? Do you remember?
I don't think I was into it.
Okay.
I don't think so. I feel like off-roading with that much battery and that much weight, I don't know.
You are I'm going to say that you actually were a little bit more positive with it.
Okay.
However, you pointed out that it's a better idea to ditch the Rubicon batch. Is that fair? That's your overall impression?
I have no idea. You're telling me.
Basically, you're saying
I have another
80 grand on a Rubicon plug-in when there are cheaper Wranglers out there.
I have like a 4xe coming up in 3 weeks, although by the time this comes out I'll have already driven it. So I think it's a Willys trim, so we'll see how I feel about that.
And then we're gonna get some commenters telling us that's not how you pronounce the name, it's Willis. And then what are we gonna do about that? How do we deal with those?
Who's Willis?
I thought that's what some people have told me is the name of that model name.
Don't know, man. If it's Willis, spell it like Willis. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, that's it for this week's episode of the Unnamed Automotive Podcast. We had our wonderful feature called "Here, Remember Some Cars." I actually really enjoyed that. That was fun. I think you hit mildly above 50 on that one, so I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. You get to stay on the I don't know. You get to stay on the top billing of our show for the next year, I guess. Is that fair?
If you want to hear other episodes that are a bit better put together and aren't at all related to someone being on vacation, you can do that at unnamedautomotivepodcast.com. There's 400 plus episodes there for you to dive into. If you listen to the early ones, please forgive us. We were young and knew nothing about podcast production. Incidentally, if you want to talk to us about the pronunciation of Willis, Willies, or Wheelies, you can do that by reaching out to us on the contact form on our website, unnamedautomotivepodcast.com. You can email me the old-fashioned way, Benjamin at Benjamin Hunting, or you can contact us on Instagram. I'm at Hunting Benjamin, and Sammy is at Sammy_ha, like you're laughing.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. I certainly had a good time. There was a lot of laughter here. So we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.